people have been killed. Chelsea captain John Terry says he'll leave the club at the end of the season after being told that he wouldn't be offered a new contract. He's been at Chelsea for more than 20 years after joining at the age of 14. Hello and welcome to our look ahead to what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. With us are author and playwright Bonnie Greer and Joel Taylor from the Metro. Welcome both. So Terry Wogan is pictured on many of the front pages. Thanks Tell, cast at a true national treasure. The Independent leads with research that found the pay gap faced by black workers widens the more qualifications they obtain. The Times says the Prime Minister's hopes of securing an EU renegotiation are hanging by a thread after the President of the European Council walked out of Downing Street declaring no deal. The Guardian reports that an estimated 800,000 people have dropped off the electoral register since the government introduced changes to the system. The Mail says GPs have voted to stop looking after hundreds of thousands of care home residents. The Telegraph says Mr Cameron has forced Brussels to admit Britain needs an immediate emergency brake on the number of foreigners coming to the UK. We'll start with the Times and coverage of the talks that have been taking place for only an hour and 45 minutes, admittedly, plus three-course meal this evening. PM has just 24 hours to reach a deal with Europe. Well, 24 hours this time, Bonnie, and there might be lots more 24 hours before we're done.
I would think so. I don't think that's exactly what this story, that's not what it says exactly, is that the PM wants to try and get this deal going in, around in-work benefits. And they've got about 24 hours. He's got 24 hours to do it in, but Tusk has apparently walked out saying no deal, whatever that means, and the PM's now, his people are saying that, well, actually, there is kind of one, but we're going to see if we can make this a little better than it's already been said. It's all quite bizarre, actually.
No deal, and yet they're constructive talks.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, just looking at the two papers that we're looking at here, the Times and the Telegraph. The Times is very much the PM has 24 hours to save this deal, basically. It's an ultimatum, and after that's final. The Telegraph suggests, actually, the conversation's been quite positive. And
it almost sounds like a Hollywood movie trailer, doesn't it? Just 24 hours.
Just 24 hours before goodness knows what. But so the Telegraph is suggesting, actually, they've made a very significant concession in the EU. They've finally said that Britain does need an emergency brake on the number of foreigners. And then finally, in the sixth column, it mentions that Tusk walked out saying no deal. Well, international talks aren't really supposed to end like that. It's not...
Not exactly. It does sound like the Prime Minister said, we need a break. And Tusk said, yes, that's right, you do, and then that's it. I mean, if he walks out saying that there's no deal, then obviously no deal has been done.
But there is a quote here in the Telegraph, isn't it? It's a very significant session. They're saying the levels of migration into the UK, the idea of what the formula is to work out when we reach that point.
Well, also, the other point is that Tusk has said that the rest of the EU would have to agree on the level that the UK has reached in order for some break that they make happen to kick in. And the Prime Minister wants it to happen right away. And, so we don't know what this is.
Yes, so, I mean, if they even get the chance to apply for this break, the other EU member states have to apparently agree to it.
But might other member states want the same break? When you think of how many people have been pouring into, Greece.
They may, but apparently...
But that adds a whole extra level of complications.
Exactly.
So it's very hard to see a way through this that's going to be easy.
And meanwhile, back at the Conservative Party, Parliamentary Party, there's a section of it's very, very, very angry.
Which
they don't
section?
see this. Well, the Eurosceptics are saying basically this is not actually a real thing. This isn't real. And someone even called it a sick joke. So that's not nice.
Let's look at The Guardian. Students hit hard by slump in electoral roll, and Labour Party saying that the change in the rules so individuals have to register to vote rather than as a sort of household.
Yeah.
800,000 have disappeared from voter lists.
Apparently disappeared from voter lists.
And they'd have to reapply, supposedly.
Yes. Yeah, obviously Labour are likely to be people like students who are more likely to vote for them. So obviously they're highlighting this, and it doesn't seem at the moment that the Cabinet Office and the government are fully taking it on board, saying that these entries are by people who've moved, died, or were on the list in the first case fraudulently.
How would you know whether you'd slipped off the list?
There's some records, obviously, the Labour Party is, and they've said this around the time of the election as well, that these many people will be missing from the electoral register. And it'd be interesting for someone to publish some figures or to see something definitive. We've just been told this is happening. It would be nice to know, but we're not getting that sort of definitively.
Yeah, I mean, presumably the first time that someone would know they're not on the list is when there's an election and they haven't had the polling card through.
Yeah, because you wouldn't automatically think that, oh, I need to go and check, would you?
Well, but if there are almost 1 million people who are going to be declared ineligible to exercise the franchise, well, that would be a concern to all of the political parties, I would think.
Particularly young voters who...
It's very interesting,
people
isn't
head scratch, don't they, about how do you attract young people to get involved in the democratic process?
That's why I'm saying there's some sort of policy incoherence at the heart of this government that I find quite strange, actually.
Well, maybe after this they'll do something. Pay gap hits black graduates in white-collar jobs out despite a drive to curb discrimination, and it's not just when they go into work, it's throughout their careers, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it's the NUS are saying this starts at the moment a black child enters the education system, that they're immediately on the back foot. I mean, it's a staggering comparison that black graduates leaving university earn 23% less than white graduates. I mean, that's huge.
But we have the laws to deal with it. Anthony Lester, who is a leading human rights lawyer, has tweeted to us, thank you. We have strong equality law against racism, but not strongly enforced. The Equality and Human Rights Commission should give priority to tackling race discrimination. So the laws exist and have done for a long time.
Well, I have to say, and I know this is not a popular thing to say, but 40 years ago, the United States tackled this by quota. I mean, we do have in the Constitution that people are entitled by law to have the same amount of access to jobs, to education, but there had to be other legislation in order to enforce it. It happened, it worked. What
about the argument that people say, well, if you do quotas for women or minorities, you don't get the best candidates?
Well, that didn't happen in the United States. I mean, we have a whole generation of people. We have had two, in a certain generation, who benefited from quotas, not least of all the President of the United States. So it works, but
it's still but there are still incredible racial divisions in America despite those quotas.
Well, but we're talking about people having access to jobs. This level of inequality is appalling and isn't anything that a democratic society should be willing to tolerate, and it should be something that's an emergency situation, I think.
I mean, Oxford University have said that it doesn't see the need for extra legislation, and they have tried to say there's a broader problem within society, but their figures are quite stark, that in last year 64 black students were enrolled at Oxford University. Now that's up from 39 5 years ago, but it's talking still very low numbers of people. And there seems to be, I don't know, an intellectual bar that stops people from sort of seeing the huge problems that
well, you start to see when there's legislation to help you see. And I have to say that in the United States, people were incentivized to do things. And when they were well, for instance, you were given extra money, literally extra money, to run your business or your university if you considered hiring. And people did it, and it did bring in a workforce. It brought in people, became entrepreneurs and business owners. It gave people education and enabled them to go to the elite universities and to other universities. It happened. It happened.
And then did it stop the problem? In introducing quotas and introducing those incentives, did it mean then that you had enough minorities within an organisation that they were then role models for the people coming behind them?
They became role models. I mean, it becomes stagnant after a while, of course, as everything that human beings do. But at the beginning, it absolutely changed society, and it did create a generation of professionals who did not exist before.
Let's look at Donald Trump. He's on the top of The Independent. America starts to give its verdict. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump seem to be leading in the polls in Iowa. where the primary takes place, the caucuses. It's all a bit close, and there's a big margin of error, but they're the two leading candidates, we're told.
Well, the mountain that Mr. Trump would have to climb in order to even be nominated as the Republican Party's candidate is the Republican Party establishment against him. Even grassroots were interested in Trump. But I have to say, and it's very important to say, that the President of the United States is not directly elected by the people of the United States. He has to be elected by an electoral college, which is the assemblage in most instances of the popular vote. The Democratic Party at this point in time has a lock on the electoral college. It's literally what it's being called now. A candidate like Donald Trump would not break that. So that's the dilemma for the Republican Party right now. He is not going to get them the White House, and they know it. So how tomorrow, Trump, which is the Iowa caucuses, and it's very bad weather tomorrow in Iowa, so people are wondering about the turnout. But Trump has got to win this and win it big.
But he does have, as you said, Bonnie, a lot of grassroots support. He's different from anybody else. It might not be palatable what he says to some people, but he's certainly an outspoken
absolutely man. But I think he is appealing to this disenfranchised body of people who feel that they haven't been represented at the White House. Are they likely to vote? Do they regularly vote? I don't know. And he's obviously he's facing a battle to convince his own.
I really just want to say it's important to say that this is not a matter of a person going to vote. This man has to be elected by a specific body, and there is so enormous.
But it is for everyone.
Yes, but the party that would have to nominate him actually don't want him to be their nominee.
Jim Messina, Barack Obama's former advisor, was talking today, saying how the Republicans are off the rails in a similar way to Corbyn's Labour Party, is what his comparison was today. And it is a party that, at the moment, it's hard to see how it can pull
I think Messina's comparison with Labour was fair.
Let's finish with tributes to Sir Terry Wogan, who's died of cancer at the age of 77. The Daily Mirror and The Sun have the same headline but different photos. Thank you for being our friend. A sad but beautiful farewell to his family. And the quote there, Bonnie, about not seeing millions of listeners, but people are individuals.
And that's what a great artist does, and that's what he was, an artist of the radio. I remember I've lived here for 30 years, and the first time I heard him, I remember where I was, because he came right through that radio, and that is a rare gift, and he used it superbly.
And then The Sun, a different picture, a very cheeky grin of a national treasure as well.
Yeah, so he had such a reassuring, always familiar voice, strangely always familiar, but it's something that you listen to him and you would relax and you would enjoy his humour, his whimsy.
But he had the instrument was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice way to finish. Tributes to Sir Terry Wogan. Joel, Bonnie, lovely to see you both. Thank you very much for talking us through the front pages. That's it from us for this evening. Coming up next, it's the Film Review.